This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. And, Jim, I want to start with this Dominique Anglade story. We had her on about an hour ago. She was at Dawson this morning, and finally, it seems the Liberals are taking a bit of a position here. Her tweet came out and said she's not going to support Bill 96, which is interesting. I think that may have been the first time I've actually heard her say that. I want you to hear, though, what she was talking about today. Brian?
Simon Jolin Barrette decided to come up with an amendment that basically says there's never going to be any increase to the population of the English-speaking CEGEPS that we have in Quebec. He came up with this amendment. Basically, what he's saying is we don't want to apply Bill 101 to CEGEPS, but he's doing exactly the opposite.
And that's the reason they're not going to support it. So first of all, tell us what you think.
Well, knock me over with a wrecking ball. This was announced like 2 months ago, right? This is not, she's making this sound like the attack on Pearl Harbor. This was announced by François Legault himself when the whole issue of enrollment in English language CEGEPS and the unacceptable level of francophones who have the temerity to decide, having been subject to Bill 101, through primary and secondary schools, that they actually had the arrogance to try and educate themselves in English, a language that anybody living in this country and indeed this planet would say you're going to need. No matter how staunch a Quebecer you are going to have some mastery of English. I find it intriguing that she's piping up now. I saw that Liberal MNA has posted a petition on the National Assembly website seeking a reversal of the government's decision to yank nearly $200 million in funding for the Dawson expansion. I don't want to, be a negative Nancy here, but the fact of the matter is, François Legault, Simon Jolin Barrette, the CAQ government, and quite frankly, a big chunk of Quebec doesn't give a damn whether or not the enrollment's limited in English language CEGEPS. They have been told that part, CAQ land, that part that voted for Legault's government, have been hit for a decade with nonstop reports, unscientific polls, and one shrieking, shirt-rendering columnist after another saying that the French culture, the French identity, the Quebec identity is under attack, and the main seat of battle is in Montreal, and it has to be stopped. So it doesn't really matter if, François Legault is bringing in Bill 101 by the back door, and I want to reiterate that. He made no secret of this. The real surprise was he sent in Daniel McCann a few weeks back to really sort of like shiv Dawson and say, oh, by the way, that funding that we had supported, that we had defended in the National Assembly, when the PQ wanted to scrap it, we voted against that. We wanted you guys to get the money. All of a sudden, we've had this epiphany that says, no, we have to help out Francophone, French language CEGEPS. That's the priority. Which, once again, is another indication of how normalized discrimination has become in François Legault's Quebec nation. And is another indicator that, as I say, he doesn't care. He doesn't need the Liberals. He doesn't need the opposition. He doesn't need Anglophones or allophones to further his agenda. All he needs are the same lockstep voters that voted him the last time, will very likely vote him into a second term. The only question now is what the level of victory is going to be. So, listen, I'd like to say there's some deep political game being played here. It's not complicated at all, guys. You don't like it, go move someplace else. But as François Legault used to say, this is how we live in Quebec, and I'm going to limit enrollment in English language institutions. End of story.
This is how we live under this government. I mean, so I still signed the petition. So even if it's not going to actually do anything, it made me feel better. What can we actually do to have some real change other than vote, obviously? Well,
I really wish, and whether it's the Liberals or to a certain extent Quebec Solidaire, I won't even talk about a fringe party like the Parti Québécois, but, I can't help but get the feeling that all of a sudden Madame Anglade is piping up because she sees an issue that will have some traction, not with the Anglophone community, which is basically getting booted in the teeth by this government for no other reason than perhaps some internal poll said it was a good idea, but because this could affect Francophones. question is, where are the Francophones coming from? Are you going to make some inroads in the regions by going to bat for Dawson or going to bat for English CEGEP enrollments? Because there are people living in the regions, and they want to send their kids to get an English language education in college. Like I say, they've done their time. They've theoretically got their high school leaving, and they have done everything the nation has imposed upon them to do. But they'd like to get a smattering of English because whether you like it or not, no matter where you are, and whether you're in Russia right now, you have to have a smattering of English if you want to talk to people around the world. Well, no, we don't like that because it's affecting our identity, which is absolute rubbish.
All right,
and lest we forget, we talk about the pandemic a lot. God knows, we've been hit over the head with it for 2 years. But remember the one thing that hasn't changed. This is a government that functions on going after an adversary, real or imagined. Mm-hmm. So now, you can tell the pandemic's over because now they're turning up the heat to make it look good that they're protecting the nation. It's all rubbish, as I say, but I hate... Sorry, guys, but get used to it because we're getting closer to an election, and they're just going to turn up the volume.
All right, I got 1 minute here. I want to know what you think about the CPC situation. I love your story, which says Charest needs to know, because he still hasn't said, right, that the CPC, the Conservative Party of Canada, already has a leader, and his name is Harper. So, Jim, just to give us an idea what you mean by that.
Very, very quickly, Stephen Harper was the co-founder, and some would say founder, of what is really the Reform Party Canadian Alliance Coalition, which was rebranded the Conservative Party of Canada. And he basically made it clear through his intermediaries, his anonymous intermediaries yesterday, that he's not going to stand idly by with his arms crossed while a non-conservative takes over essentially his Conservative Party. Now, Jean Charest has some conservative credentials as well, but it's not a good day to use this, but I can't think of a better analogy. Get ready to see some Civil War-like activity coming down the pike, because a lot of people have thrown in with Charest, and if it's made clear that the game is going to be fixed, that he can't play, that only the people blessed by the leader, the actual leader, can play, you may see some breakaways happening sooner rather than later, because I think a lot of people are unhappy with what's happening to the perceived party of conservatism in this country. It's not looking anything at all like the party many of them voted for, and there's no indication within the existing CPC that things are going to change. So, that's the story to watch.
Okay. And by the way, we've heard nothing from Jean Charest other than his camp, but nothing from him, right?
I haven't heard a word.
Okay.
I was looking yesterday. I was looking today. Now, obviously, maybe people think it's not a good idea to start making announcements on a day like today.
Right.
But all that said, I'd be very surprised if you don't hear something by this weekend, because clearly that was yet another not so subtle shot, not across, but at the bows of Jean Charest by Stephen Harper.
James MENNIE at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Adamant.